How's it going, Giants fans? Welcome back to Fireside Giants with your boys Alex and Anthony. Today we're discussing a linebacker option that many of you may not know about. Now, we have discussed Tremaine Edmonds. We're going to look at his film this offseason. We're going to do a lot of due diligence on all the available free agents at positions of need for this team. Linebackers, obviously, probably number one on the list, if not like 1A, 1B with wide receiver, and you need some interior offensive linemen. A lot of positions that could use a little bit of support. But we have one player in mind. He's a sixth-round pick. He's heading into free agency. He had a really, really good year as a first-year starter. Finally got the opportunity to start full-time with the Tennessee Titans, and he was one of their best defensive players this past season. He is probably one of the best off-ball linebackers in the entire free agency class. This guy's an absolute stud. And he's really young, 26 years old, really coming into his own just now, and his market value has him at about $5 million per year, but we're thinking probably closer to $7 or $8 million per year, just because I think Spotrac kind of undersold it a little bit. But we're going to discuss this player. David Long is the name. So go look up his highlights, go look up some more information about him. We're going to give you all of that right now and then some, and kind of break down why he could be a good fit for this Giants team that desperately needs support. And we need a Mike linebacker. Do I trust Micah McFadden? Not really. Do I trust Darian Beavers? I'd love for him to develop into a pretty solid player coming off an ACL tear. I don't trust that he's going to be an impact player right away. A lot of these guys need a year after tearing their ACL to really fully recover and get back into football shape. Of course, Tate Crowder's gone. Jalen Smith, I don't want to go down that road again. I don't want to go down to the Gerard Davis road again. We need a legitimate talent at this position, and David Long is one of those guys that should be considered heavily. But Anthony, before we dive into it, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. I think this is a really good find, Alex. David Long makes a lot of sense for the New York Giants. It's a sixth-round pick in 2019, as you mentioned, only 26 years old, and he's just finally starting to scratch the surface of his potential. He really hasn't had the opportunity to be a full-time starter at the off-ball linebacker position, playing in the middle of the field until the 2022 season, and what a breakout year he had. First full season as a middle linebacker, starting in the Titans defense, and if you watch the Tennessee Titans, you know that they ask their linebackers, their middle linebackers in particular, to do a lot for their defensive scheme. All of the running plays, all of the pass coverage, it just relies on those middle linebackers to make those plays and execute their assignments in order for that defense to work. So this is a player who had a lot on his plate this season for the first time and rose to the occasion with 86 combined tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 2 interceptions. He's a really good run defender, has excellent PFF grades in run defense, but he's also pretty solid in pass defense, and he's very athletic. So if you're looking at him and saying, could we expand his repertoire and make him more of a pass coverage linebacker? Well, he's got the athleticism and he's got the tools to do it. So I think that also when you look at his pass rushing capabilities, he had a great pressure rate, one of the best pressure rates in football over the past 2 years from an off-ball linebacker alignment. This is a guy who fits perfectly in Wink Martindale's defensive scheme. We know Wink loves to run man coverage, blitz-heavy defense, super aggressive, ask those middle linebackers to blitz through the A and B gap very frequently in this Wink Martindale system. And I think David Long really fits the bill as a young player that the Giants could sign to a long-term deal and really build this defense around from the middle of the field. So I like David Long. I think this should be one of the Giants' top targets in free agency this offseason.
Absolutely. I mean, look, at the end of the day, that we know the Giants need to upgrade this position, and we know that youth is normally better than aging guys. Like, there is a Levante David on the board. We could go in that type of direction. Older player, proven, really one of the best, off-ball linebackers in football, has been for a very long time. But again, he's getting older. Do you really want to go down that route, paying him $10, $12, $13 million a year for 2 seasons instead of having a guy you can really build around and situate as one of your prominent pieces on the defensive front? So David Long, this is a pretty special young player at 6th-round pick. You love to see these guys kind of transforming and becoming really, really solid. He was 5'11", 225 pounds. He packs a punch for sure. And I'll read you the description that PFF had for him on their article that really digests, how he performed this past season and what he can do for the future. So I'll read you, word for word. The Titans ask a lot of their off-ball linebackers, and Long can do it all. His 89 run defense grade in 2022 ranked 4th at the position with his 13 tackles for a loss or no gain tied for 12th. Long plays a downhill attacking brand of football that helps him blow up a lot of plays, but also makes him particularly susceptible to overcommitting on play action passes and missing tackles when he takes a poor pursuit angle. So I will discuss that in a second. Nevertheless, he is clearly an ascending young contributing player immensely to Tennessee's defense that finished first in expected points added per rush allowed on the season. The 2022 season was Long's first as a full-time starter at middle linebacker, but he's made the most of opportunities in the past. Over the past 3 seasons, his 19.8% pass rush win rate and 23.8% pressure rate are both the second best marks among off-ball linebackers with at least 100 pass rush snaps over the span. So, guys, if you want to know why he's a great fit for this defense, it's because he's very good at blitzing the quarterback from the middle linebacker position, and we know that Wink Martindale loves to have guys that can do exactly that. So, you have Darian Beavers, who I think is going to end up becoming a good run-stuffing linebacker. He's a really good recognition. He was a prominent piece on that Cincinnati defense at the collegiate level. Did a lot for them. He's a little bit slower, but he's so smart. He puts himself into really good positions. David Long, however, the one big con for me is that he misses a pretty substantial amount of tackles. He had a 16% missed tackle rate this past season and 15.2% in 2021. So that's something that he needs to get a little bit better at. As PFF mentioned, he overcommits sometimes. He's a little bit too aggressive, which, in my opinion, isn't the worst thing in the world. But he does have games where he just really falls apart in the tackling department. Like against Cincinnati in Week 12 this year, he had 4 missed tackles. He only had 1 game all season long when he didn't miss a tackle. So, that's obviously something that he needs to improve upon. A lot of that usually is fundamental based, and you can coach out bad tackling form and really being overly aggressive. But it seems like they wanted him to do this, right? Tennessee were like, go be aggressive. If you miss a couple tackles, it is what it is, because we know you're going to find your way into the backfield. 13 tackles for a loss is definitely impressive, and that only happens because of his aggressiveness. So, the missed tackle rate is definitely a bit of a concern, but it's kind of a byproduct of being aggressive, in my opinion. His run defense grades are some of the best you're going to find out there in coverage. He did give up 477 yards, but he didn't give up a touchdown. He had 2 interceptions and a pass breakup. He only had 2 penalties on him, so they target him in coverage because, he is a linebacker, but he doesn't give up touchdowns very often. He's good in the red zone in that respect. He gives up yards, but, yards are whatever unless, you're kind of on the back end or on the wrong end of a touchdown or a score. So, when you're looking at him, he also had 15 quarterback hurries. He more than doubled his total from 2021. That's attesting to, obviously the pass rush value he has. So, Anthony, when you're looking at him as a pass rushing middle linebacker that can do a lot for you in the blitzing game, but also that aggressiveness, he can kind of get beat on the play action, get beat because of that sometimes. But that's not necessarily a problem because he makes up for it with tackles for a loss, pressures. He does a lot of good things to compensate for those metrics that otherwise on paper don't look great.
Yeah, one of the things about Wink Martindale's defense is I don't think there's no such thing as over-aggression in this defense, right? This is the most aggressive defensive scheme in all of football. The Giants play more cover 0 than any other team in the NFL, more cover 1 than most teams in the NFL, and they blitz at a higher rate than any team in the league. So when you look at that and you say, is David Long too aggressive of a player? Absolutely freaking not. There is no such thing as a too aggressive player for Wink Martindale's defense. So when you talk about him maybe taking some bad pursuit angles or maybe getting a little too aggressive as a blitzer, missing some tackles, whatever the case might be, it doesn't matter because that's exactly the type of defensive playing style that Wink Martindale is looking for. Go look at the linebackers that he worked with over in Baltimore. Guys like Patrick Queen who are really fast and love to go downhill, shoot gaps, and make some aggressive tackles in the backfield. They miss some tackles when they do that. When you have a defender who flies into the backfield in the first second of the play and misses a tackle but slows down the running back who then gets tackled for a loss, that's a win. That is a solid play. So sometimes that missed tackle stat can be a little bit misleading because, yes, there will be plays where the linebacker, in David Long's case, doesn't make the tackle. However, he makes the play, right? Because he gets the running back trapped behind the line of scrimmage and allows the defensive lineman to make the tackle. So I think when you look at his aggression, I wouldn't look at it as a negative by any means. I'm only looking at it as a positive because that's exactly the brand of football that Wink Martindale asks his players to play. So with David Long being such an aggressive pass rusher, I think that's perfect for Martindale because Martindale loves to send creative blitzes, whether that be safety blitzes, slot cornerback blitzes, and his favorite middle linebacker blitzes. So you're going to see pressure come from every which way in Wink Martindale's defense, and David Long has the capabilities to line up off ball, on ball on the edge if he needs to, and pass rush at a very high level, get into the backfield, pressure the quarterback, and make some plays in Wink Martindale's defense. So again, I think he makes perfect sense for this defensive scheme specifically, and that's why I think he should be one of the Giants' top targets. Not because he's a talented linebacker who can make an impact in the running game, but because he's an aggressive pass rush focal point in his repertoire for a linebacker in the middle of the defense. That is what makes him a fit with Wink Martindale in this defensive scheme. So I really like David Long for that, and I also think that when you look at his coverage abilities, he plays really well in those shallow zones. Had 2 interceptions this year, including one on the goal line, a game winner against the Commanders for the Tennessee Titans defense. He can really do it all. So I like the way that he fits into the scheme.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that he's actually like a perfect fit. And let's talk about the contract implications. Obviously a free agent, Tennessee, based on the way he came along, they might want to bring him back, but they're not going to franchise tag him. He's not that valuable just yet. And coming off one good year, I kind of feel like he's going to be one of those players that grows and develops over time, and he fits our mold so well that I think he would get even better in Wink Martindale's system, especially with the way that they utilize their linebackers. So I'll ask you this, what kind of contract would you be willing to offer him? Because right now, I don't want to invest $10, $12 million in a linebackers. We just don't have that type of financial flexibility right now. But $7 to $8 million, I would absolutely invest in a linebacker over a couple seasons. So I think my preferred deal would probably be like a 3-year deal with an out after the second, allowing him to kind of capitalize. Like, he's 26 years old, so he'll be 29 years old when that deal ends. He can easily keep cashing in on a secondary contract after that. So maybe a 3-year deal with a team option to pick up the third season if they want to, an out after that second year. So maybe I'd say maybe 21, 22, like 20, I don't know, $24 million over 3 years, maybe, with, I don't know, 15, 16 million guaranteed, something like that.
Those are similar numbers that I had in my head. I was thinking, 8 million across 3 or 4 years. So either 3 years
Right.
and you're talking 24, or 4 years, 32. For me personally, 26 years old, super young. This is only his first season as a starter. The ceiling is only up from here. Like, he's only going to elevate his game further in my eyes, David Long, being a young player who is pretty inexperienced but finally coming along. So you're talking about a guy that you're signing hoping to be a top end starter at the linebacker position, but he really does have the potential to be one of the best linebackers in the NFL in the next 2 to 3 years. So I'm down to sign him for longer since he is young and has that potential. Sign him to like a 4-year deal, because when you're talking about that $8 million right now being a fair valuation for him, right? And SpotRack has him at $5 million. So if we're saying $8 million is fair, it's not an overpay, not an underpay. Well, since he's so young and he hasn't played a lot, if he starts to really develop and comes on as one of the best linebackers in the NFL next year, that $8 million is going to look like a bargain, because he's really going to be worth $12 to $15 million if he puts up another dominant 2023 season in a new uniform. So I want to sign him for the longer term, being that he's so young and has so much potential. So for me, 4 years, $8 million per year, maybe an out after 3, and probably over half of it guaranteed, because again, I'm banking on the potential here.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair. I think I was going with 3 because I'm just like generally scared of players that have only been good for like 1 year. Like, I do think he'll get better, and I do think he'll be a great fit for us, but I also like kind of wanted to ebb on the side of caution. So, I would be fine with a 4-year deal with an out after the second season. Like, that's cool with me. 4 years out after the second season, we can protect ourselves a little bit while also having that security if he does end up playing really well and dominating. Maybe you have a couple of incentives built in so we can make a little bit more, because, if it's 4 years and he feels like he's only just hitting his stride, why would he want to cash in at maybe a number that won't be what he's worth? And if he has another great year in 2023, maybe he wants to cash in again. Like, there are things in terms of what he might want. So maybe you build some incentives into it. If you make the Pro Bowl, if, whatever, you have a certain amount of tackles, you get a big, you maybe get $1 million, whatever it might be. So I think those are ways the Giants can kind of help that contract make sense for him, because he probably thinks he's worth a little bit more than that, based on the fact that the linebacker market's kind of interesting right now. You got Levante David, Tremaine Edmonds, David Long. I think there's a guy Pratt's on there as well from Cincinnati. There's some players there that are solid but aren't proven. Like Tremaine Edmonds has certainly not proven this is like his first good year, and same with David Long. But David Long's a much better guy in coverage, so like you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons here. But based on his ability to rush the passer, he certainly seems like a great fit for this Giants team and this Wink Martindale-led defense. But we'll do a film breakdown on him. This is a really interesting player, in my opinion, Anthony. We should definitely break down some film on him and take a look at what he can offer this defense, because based on all the metrics, he's a perfect fit. And based on the money, he's also a perfect fit. You know, we don't want to spend $10+ million on a linebacker. So if we could settle in at $8 million for a starting Mike linebacker with blitzing prowess and coverage abilities and good run stopping and tackle for loss abilities, that's a freaking home run in my opinion. So I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this guy. Definitely an exciting young player who has a lot left to learn, a lot left to do in the NFL, and could get tremendously better over the next couple seasons under our scheme. But as always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe. As always, got tons of offseason content coming your way, talking about a myriad of different players, free agents, trade concepts, going through all of our current free agents and who we should keep, who we should let go, the financial implications, free agency. There's so much to do, and we got you guys covered, as always, every day on Fireside Giants. As I said, like, subscribe below, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.